So let's say you're a creator of some kind. You've blocked 2 or 3 hours of the day for whatever project you're working on. You have all the materials, you have the perfect space, be it a room, favorite coffee shop, and when you go there, you just don't want to do it. You just don't want to do it. You don't want to do it so much that you think you don't want to do it. And you think you can do it. And this is exactly what has happened to me for the past 4 hours, more or less. So I've been meaning to make a trip. I've been intending to. I was on the way out, but life happened. Good news, don't worry. And I'm stuck home alone with the house to myself, with all the ideal conditions to write. I had nothing to do today except go on a road trip that didn't pan out. And I haven't written a single word. I'm staring at my notebook because now it's analog August, and I'm trying to write as much as I can by hand. I've tried to use a typewriter, but I'm not a typewriting dude. But I believe in handwriting. I definitely believe in handwriting. I'm a fan of handwriting. Honestly, when I become successful as a writer, I would like to pay a secretary to just transcribe my handwritten notes. So yeah, make sure you check out my stuff on Substack and support me so that I can pay this potential secretary. But back to the topic of the video, which I've been meaning to make for a long time. And when I say that, is that I've been meaning to make a video, and I've been meaning to talk about these things for a very long time. And namely, where you are is where you create. Let me repeat it in case you want to write it down. Where you are is where you create. And this where, obviously, it's much more complex than like physical space. It's mental space as much. And I think that today I wasn't in the mental space to write right now, which sucks. But I've tried to get in this mood without much success, and I'm at peace with that. I'm at peace with that, and probably I'll start writing after posting this video. Who knows? I'll give you guys an update. But what's interesting is that over the past few years, over the past year, and before that, over the past few years, but since I've started publishing on Substack, I've always thought these ideal conditions in which to create. Like, I had to be alone, I had to have 2-3 hours. Basically, what today the universe handed me on a silver platter, and I didn't use them. And it's very interesting because as I was trying to write, there was like this, not this voice, but this feeling inside me. You're not meant to do this right now. That's what that presence was expressing. You're not meant to do this right now. And I actually thought, when I was 15, I started writing poetry. I was writing loads of poetry. I think I had days where I wrote 2-3 poems a day. Mind you, they were not very good poems. But I was writing 2-3 poems a day, and 2 out of 3, or let's say make an average, 4 out of 5, 4 out of 5, somewhere around that, they were written in horrible conditions for writing, or at least, what I would describe now as horrible conditions. I was writing them in the bus, when I was waiting for the bus, in the metro station. I was writing them during, like a class, like a lesson we had in high school. I was writing them whenever, wherever, as many as I could, and even though most of them, or yeah, all of them didn't survive, like I actually destroyed them. Um, those are the poems that made me the writer that I am today, because that was a period where I had, like a huge body of work, and I was asking for feedback. And like the answers that came, like from different individuals, they weren't encouraging. Like they didn't have like many good words to say, except for the fact that, oh, it's good that you write poetry. And there were, like my literature professors, and um, you know older literary people that I was befriending at the time, and they didn't had very good things to say about my poetry, but they saw me as an artist, and I think they didn't want to go easy on me. They said, oh, like you make a lot of beginner mistakes. Sometimes it feels like you're just writing to hear yourself talk, which was a very apt descriptor of my work at the time, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of having gone through that stage where, I was writing to hear myself talk, in written form, because once you're out of that phase as a writer, as a creator, when you're and you can look back on that, it's you've known that you've at least grown somewhat as a person, and that's, at the end of the day, that's why we do all, like noble endeavors, all endeavors of the spirit, to become better as persons. That's why we read, that's why we write, that's why we do sports, like physically train. I think that's the ultimate goal, is to become like better people. And I'll leave it. I'll add that for that video. And I didn't have these ideal conditions that, like I require now, and they've become so important and so stupid that, like I feel a bit embarrassed to talk about them now to you guys. But it is what it is. And if anything, I want to be honest about my creative process, as much as it is my creative, or about the creative process as it manifests to me. And with the whole "where you are is where you create," with this motto, for me it's a reminder of the days when I was writing poetry, bad poetry, but poetry nevertheless, in the metro, in the train, in the tube, as Londoners might say. And it was basically like, in a sense, an apprenticeship. And as I got older, I started asking more and more and more, and it wasn't something that happened out of the blue. It was a process. It was a pretty, like a process that like lasted almost a decade, where I went from, oh, you can write anywhere, to have to have all these conditions, these prerequisites. Because I remember when I first said to myself that, oh, I want to be a writer, like this is what I want to do with my life, this is the most important thing to me career wise, is to be a great writer. And it was in 2016, and I remember I was writing, like outdoors. I was going to the park to write, to the coffee shop, to write. And as I got older, like a thing that really affected me, a bit, was that my first child was born before I published my first book. And younger me younger me believed that, oh, when you have a kid, you won't have time to write. I don't know how these people do it. But funny funny thing is that I've started my Substack when my son was almost 10 months old. And before that, I restarted writing after he was born, because I had a break from writing for maybe, I don't know, 16 months. Let's say 16 months. And a very unhappy period, creatively. But yeah. So my main takeaway is that, most prerequisites, that you impose on yourself, they're all in your head, or you've borrowed them from somebody else. Like, I remember the 5 hours of being alone. I got that from David Lynch. Like, when David Lynch died, he had there was somebody who released like a masterclass video, and I watched all of it. And he said there that you need 5 hours, like, or he was quoting somebody, said, he I know, either him or a friend, who the person who was giving this advice was a painter. So that painter feller said, I need 5 hours alone to get 2 hours worth of painting done. I said, yeah, I need 5 hours, to get 2 hours worth of writing done. Which is, it was the biggest lie that I've made myself believe. The biggest lie that I've made myself believe. Because how the creative process works for me is still a mystery. And if you've watched my previous video, you know that mystery ain't such a bad thing. Mystery is good. It's good that it's mysterious, it keeps me humble. And those prerequisites are as illusory as any sense of control I think I may have over the process. Like, yeah, Rick Rubin and a lot of creators have this idea. There's this idea that you have to surrender yourself to the process. And yeah, that's true. Like, you just have to show up and surrender yourself to the process. So if there's anything that you should take away, is that, keep a small notebook with you at all times. Note any ideas. Like, if you're the kind of person to take a book anywhere, if you're the kind of person to take a book everywhere you go, be sure to, like, put in some blank papers in between the pages. Keep a pen, and who knows, or, like a pencil if you're a visual artist. And do whatever it takes to create. And any place is as good as the other. There are many poems that have been composed without pen, without paper, inside prison walls. They were just composed orally, and they were sent down orally through the prisoners. And the original creators, they've died, but the poems survived. And that's how it should be. Because maybe, like, coming back to my teenage poetry, the poems themselves didn't survive, those works, but the feedback that I got from them, it's part part of my being. The work that I've done, when writing them was highly important for me when I found my voice, so to speak. When I found like what I naturally gravitate to, and what I'm naturally good at. Like writing, what I write in an authentic voice. And yeah, it's like, I think the biggest thing like that those poems taught me was, when I released them, is that I didn't get attached. Like they're a part of me, and they're a part of me as a creative being, but they themselves, they ran their course. Like they were like in a video games, when you have consumables. They were consumables. I've consumed them. I wrote them, I got my feedback on them, and I've let them go. And that part of letting go, it's when you tune into the creative process, like the dial on the radio. When you've let go, there's the point where the melody that's coming from the radio, as you're tuning it in, it starts to sound like music. It's not static anymore. And as I said, coming back to my previous thing, is that like art makes us better individuals. And I don't think if you're being too attached, you can't really grow as a person, because at the end of the day, you're attached to the person you are. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. If you've made it so far, be sure to like, subscribe, turn on that bell's notification button, and I'll see you pretty soon with my next Nether Strands video. Thank you very much.